This is LA's first.
Live from Los Angeles, welcome to the Dr. Erin Show. We're all about manifestation, transformation, and breakthroughs. It's time to claim your birthright of prosperity, vitality, and love. So grab your tea or coffee because together, we're awakening the world. May you live your truth. Live from Los Angeles, this is Dr. Erin. We come together each day to know the truth, to live on spiritual principle, and to align with universal law and our unique divine expression. That's right. Live your truth. We come together also in community, in Soulciété, in New Thought Global. We come together to recognize that we are here to claim our birthright of prosperity through bringing our soul-based businesses, spiritual coaches, and world-renowned spiritual leaders into the world so that we can touch lives and awaken 1 billion people. That is our mission. Our vision is to be the #1 spiritual community committed to enlightenment, empowerment, and entrepreneurship. So today we're going to talk about the universal law of divine will. Universal law of divine will. This is a series at number 10 of 52 series. And so we first want to define what is divine will. And it is different than what the world will consider free will. So I remember years ago, I was actually in ministerial. We had a 3-day panel where we had to actually go to, we were at like a Casa de Maria in Montecito. We went up there for 3 days and we had panels. It was actually very stressful because I had been in a program for years and years and years. And we had the possibility of passing or not passing, doing our exams, our orals, and having this thing where it's like, oh my gosh, like I've put so much time and effort and years into this course and into all this. What if they fail me? And it was like, whoa. So I had to I was sitting there in the midst of it, kind of stressed out bizarrely in a weird way. And I thought, well, what is my free will versus, what is in the hands of someone else? And so I began to really contemplate what is free will. And it's something, of course, we had debated and there's distinctions within New Thought world and within science of mind and all that. And the real distinction between what we would consider free will or divine will is that we recognize that the core of who we are is source. The core of who we are is divine, is God, is our higher self. And so we have to recognize that everything is the outpicturing of the one, of this one source. And so we have to recognize also that it's kind of different than how we think of free will. It's not like I pick up a glass of water and I move it to the other side of the table and that would be considered a free will, right? There's something bigger going on. There are forces in this universe that create differently than what the logical, traditional mind thinks of how we create individually. So we have to first define what is free will versus divine will. So free will, if you take a look at Merriam-Webster's dictionary, it says number 1 is voluntary choice or decision, right? Number 2 is freedom of humans to make choices that are not determined prior cause or by divine intervention. So first of all, as a spiritualist, we would never agree with that in that we recognize we are divine and we are all the prior causes, right? So we have to really recognize and make the distinction that we are not just the individual, we are the individual consciousness, the collective consciousness, and the cosmic consciousness. We are the I am, we are the one, okay? So then we have to really look at what is divine will then. Divine will is really understanding that it is all from one cause. The first cause, which is spirit, which is source, which is divine, okay? So from a Stanford perspective, if you do some research on what free will is, right? So they have the debate within Stanford of for and against free will, basically. So if you look at it, the real argument against free will is, according to this debate within Stanford, the side that argues against free will states there are both a priori and empirical arguments against free will. Several of these start with an argument that free will is incompatible with causal determinism. So we have to look at what causal determinism, and sorry for getting a little bit deep, this might be a little bit boring for just a moment, but bear with me, okay? So causal determinism is how you cause it, right? So we have to really think of, and it's obviously a lot more in depth of that. But the argument in Stanford for free will And this, I think, is what's really important to really take a look at, because I truly believe that science and big universities and stuff will come to the same truths as we already know in spirituality for years and years, right? So the argument is, if one is an incompatibilist, really, then the cause for and the reality for free will requires evidence for being effective agents who are the most part aware of what we do and why we're doing it. Okay, so really, free will in the eyes of, say, a Stanford or a big university is saying, are we aware of our choices, right? Versus just being out of the subconscious mind or out of some reptilian, we're just, computer type of a thing, right? If one really is an incompatibilist, really understanding this cause of determinism occurring in the right location is in this process leading from deliberation to action. Many think that we already have third, personal, neutral scientific evidence for much of human behavior satisfying modest incompatibilist requirements, such as Fisher and Revisa, sorry, that name's hard to pronounce. So basically they're saying that they do already scientifically have the evidence basically for against causal determinism. Okay, so we need to break this on down, because if you are a spiritual coach, because really my audience, my community are people who really want to understand, they've had a divine calling, to have a spiritual calling. Generally, the people that are in my tribe, if you will, or listen to this podcast are really kind of obsessed with consciousness, kind of obsessed with spirituality. And you need to be able to if somebody says, we don't have free will, you need to be able to say, well, from our perspective, from a spiritualist perspective, or from a new thought perspective, or from a science of mind perspective, what is the answer? How do we make the case that we do have free will in the perspective that really free will is divine will? Because we don't see any difference, because it is really the ignorance, if you will, of understanding our true nature. And our true nature is one with all of life, and science proves that now. So we have to be able to argue for the truth, and that's why we get to be righteous, right? So the universal law of free will basically is that the absolute truth is God's will, is your will. God's will is your will. There's no delineation, okay? This law works in direct proportion to your ability to direct energy upon universal law by the power of your mind and with the conviction of your heart. Divine will has nothing to do with using force upon the physical realm. Control is influenced by the beliefs within your soul. Okay, so this is the deal. We know that everything is the outpicture of what's happening in your soul, okay? Your soul is not neutral. Your soul is where all your limited beliefs are in, okay? So say, for example, you feel like you want something in life. You want to have freedom of choice and free will to be able to manifest something. But life might feel like it has a completely different plan, and there's resistance, and you're not being able to manifest and demonstrate what you want in life. We have to recognize, because it is actually not necessarily coming from that logical standpoint. It's actually, life is outpicturing the free will, and the divine will is happening at a soul level. You don't have to do anything. It is in actually your perception of life from your limited beliefs that is outpicturing through the law of polarity and all kinds of things, okay? So we have to take a look at how are you creating your free will? You're creating your free will by actually your decisions in mind. Your identity is what's causing the free will to outpicture. So we have to go past the concept of, do you have choice or do you not have choice, okay? You always have choice. But say the addict that's very addicted feels like, I have no choice in this. I'm just doing things on automation. Well, it's because they have chosen over and over and over again at a soul level, at a subconscious level, to hand their power over again and again and again to a substance, a thing, or a circumstance. Therefore, they're experiencing having no free will. But the reality is that they created over and over again. They made choices that create now what feels like they have no choice, which is actually what they did choose. Okay. So it's the same thing with anything in life, right? So say I want high energy. I want to have freedom of choice to have high energy right here, right now. But over time, I've made, choices of poor choices of the food that I've put in my body over and over and over again. Or I also, have something at a soul level that I feel like I've not completed different epigenetic cycles within my DNA, right? So, but all of this was choice. It was choice at some point in time, which we know there's no such thing as point in time in spiritual, but there is the choice and there is the effect that's happening, that's outpicturing now in your current reality, okay? So how do we restore feeling like we have more and more, quote, quote, free will? And this is the deal, as always. We have to do our inner trauma, spiritual trauma work. We have to release feeling like we're the effect of anything. We need to awaken to the fact that we chose every last drop of what we're experiencing now, whether that be culturally, whether that be individually, whether that be that we created, even from a cosmic perspective. Okay. So we first have to wake up to the fact that we created all of it. Next, we have to align. We have to align, of course, with this. So, of course, it goes back to the 4 steps. The first step is to awaken, to wake up and decide that we want to restore our free will. Second is to reprogram our subconscious mind, meaning that we do our inner trauma work. We deprogram from what the culture has told us, that we're an individual, that we just have this mini-me free will. No, we have to reprogram to recognize the truth of who we are. We are divine. We are God's will. We are that at a soul level. And then we have to align. And this is an important thing also. We have to align with universal law. So if you're an addict or whatever, right, you've got to cleanse the body. You've got to restore the chemistry of the body, right? You've got to align to your unique truth, and live in alignment with what really works for you or doesn't work for you. And then, of course, we've got to affirm every single day. Step 4 is to affirm every single day in every way and tap into our higher self through meditation, through all the processes, so that we recognize. And so the extent to which you're going to feel powerful is the extent to which you expand your consciousness and align to universal law and to your unique truth, okay? The extent to which you will experience having free will is the extent to which you align to the truth, to which you expand your consciousness, and to you aligning to universal law, to Mother Nature, and to your unique truth, okay? So what is divine will? Divine will is understanding that everything, every cause and effect is from one cause, which is from first cause, which is spirit, which is divine, which is God, which is the truth of who you are. And when you recognize, even when you feel like you aren't creating something, you recognize that is actually, it's the outpicturing of how the subconscious works. It's the outpicturing of how your beliefs work through universal law. It's the outpicturing of how the gravity works and how Mother Nature works, because there is a divine order to this universe. And when you recognize that it's all in accordance with what you created, the true self, the God self, then you recognize that you always have new choice, because you can get into directing new energy upon mind and creating something new in your life. And that's why we call it new thought, because new thought is recognizing that we always have the choice for a new thought. That really is free will. And that is what I almost feel like the entire industry should be named after, right? So there's a very famous book called Spirits in Rebellion. And it's a book we had to read in ministerial school to understand what is new thought. And in the first chapter, when I think about that first chapter in Spirits in Rebellion, I think about free will. What is that? What is it? What is free will? And I think that Charles S. Braden, who wrote the book, gives an in-depth overview of what is new thought. So what is it anyway? And what I got out of this reading is really understanding that the blanket of all of this philosophy, all of new thought, really comes down to free will. That's really the entire thing, is understanding how do we have free will, and how do we basically restore our free will. And for me, that is the entire point of this philosophy, of science of mind, of unity, of these spiritual centers. And understanding that we're able to live in total freedom and choice and create what we do want and what we desire. And in fact, just writing that I had to write a paper on it and sealing the thinking of what this really work is, which is all about your free will, your divine will, and restoring. And so this universal law is so important. It is one of the most important things to dive into, the law of divine will, which is your will, is God's will. You have created all of life. You have created this entire universe. And everything is the outpicturing of that. And everything is the outpicturing of what you truly believe, which is what you be and what you live. And you are such a powerful spiritual being that the moment you even consider yourself to be, you set the entire stream of universal law, of divine will into order. And so I simply know this, the truth of who you are. Ernest Holmes said, I exist in limitless possibilities, and that's the truth of who you are. And the author, Schopenhauer, said, man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills, meaning that it always happens differently than what our logical mind thinks, because our logical mind can't even grasp at some points in time this thing called universal law. But that's why I truly believe that understanding universal law helps you understand it logically. Helps you look and laugh at life and go, ha ha ha, I see this cosmic joke of how I actually created it. And the outpicturing of how it's happening right now may seem like a sick and twisted and cosmic joke, but really it is in total perfection of exactly what is the outpicturing of what I truly believe. So in that, may you awaken, may you live your truth, and may you have the best day ever, you guys. Have a wonderful day. May you live your truth. Thank you for tuning in to Soulciété and Dr. Erin podcast. If you've had a calling to be a spiritual leader or coach, you can go to soulciety.com and check out our free training. If you've received value here, I would love it if you take a moment and give a 5-star review. In exchange, I have a ton of free gifts for you. Grab your free awakening book, 40 guided meditations, and digital manifesting masterclass. I also have a free money meditation and worksheet for you so you can begin to break through your scarcity mindset and claim your birthright of prosperity. You can get all of your gifts and learn about our upcoming transformational events in my bio link in both Instagram and Facebook. That's under drerin.tv, which is drein.tv. Also, I'd love to invite you into our free private community on Facebook under groups called Soulciété. That is facebook.com/groups/Soulciété. That's SOULCIETE. Have a divine day and may you live your truth.